Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the Road Safety Capacity Building Program Webinar Series 2. So before we officially start, if we can bring up the slide on translations, please, Mark. Just want to know for all our colleagues that speak Russian, that there is Russian interpretation available throughout this webinar series. So if you can kindly click and select Russian through your Zoom icon at the bottom of your Zoom application, that would be fantastic, and you'll be able to hear our wonderful interpreters translate the presentations to you into Russian. So a very warm welcome once again to everyone to the Road Safety Capacity Building Program Webinar Series 2, focusing on safe and sustainable transport. So this webinar series has been brought to you by the Asia Road Safety Observatory and the Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation Program and the Asian Development Bank. And the funding for this series was received from the Japan Fund for Prosperous and Resilient Asia and the Pacific, financed by the Government of Japan through the Asian Development Bank. So if I haven't had a chance to meet you before, my name is Jessica Trung, and I'm from a company called Lersninger that specializes in Vision Zero planning. And I'm very glad to have you all join us for the very final session in our capacity building program in this webinar series. If we can move to the next couple of slides, please, Mark. As you can see in this very final session of our webinar series, we will be focusing on the co-benefits of speed reductions to assist with livable cities. We've got a great lineup of speakers from WRI, from MIROS, and also from a representative from Papua New Guinea. So we'll be delving into the topics of how speed reduction can help make a city safer and also more livable. And if we move to the next slide, please, Mark. And as you can see, this is the fifth of a 5-part webinar series. We've sadly arrived at our very last session for the series now. So we'll be talking about this particular topic today. And what we are hoping to do is actually resume this webinar series in October later this year. The topic is yet to be confirmed, but what we will do is send out an evaluation form at the end of this webinar and hopefully get some of your feedback on what you think would be a suitable topic and what you would like to actually hear more about and be able to build your capacity in our webinar series, which will resume later in October. So it will be great to get some of your feedback, and we hope that you'll be able to join us for series 3 later this year. So if we move to the next slide, please, Mark. Also, I just want to bring to your attention, if you're not already aware, that there is an APRSO Road Safety Conference and annual meeting, which will be taking place in Manila on the 9th to the 11th of September. And this is another great opportunity for you to be able to delve into some of these road safety topics that we've touched on in this webinar series and the previous one in a little bit more detail. And it's also a fantastic opportunity for you to be able to meet with other colleagues in the road safety arena in the Asia Pacific region. So if you haven't already registered, we highly encourage you to register. Mark has very helpfully put the link to the registration in the chat, and we would love to see you join us there in September later this year. So once again, we're really grateful that you've been supporting us through this webinar series. So before we delve into our very last session for this webinar series, just a couple of quick housekeeping rules that most of you will be very familiar by now if you've joined us for the previous sessions. So as usual, your microphones will be muted unless you are invited to speak. We do have the question and answer function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We highly encourage you to utilize that to interact with our speakers if you've got any questions, and also with each other. So do feel free to answer any questions that you think you might have the answer to. So please use that. And as usual, we will have a question and answer session available at the end of this webinar series where you will be able to ask questions to the speakers. You can either use the question and answer function, or feel free to raise your hand during that session as well, and we can call on you to ask the question directly to our speakers. So with that, these are the very short housekeeping rules. And now I would like to begin the webinar series officially and welcome our very first speaker, Tolga Imamoglu from WRI, the World Resources Institute, and share a little bit with us around how street design can help create more livable and safer cities. Thank you so much for joining us, Tolga. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jessica. So good morning, good afternoon to all. I mean, the majority of the attendance. I think you are based in the East Asia and the Central Asia. So good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Celal Tolga İmamoğlu. I'm working for the ROS Center for Sustainable Cities as a senior manager for transport and road safety. I'm based in Istanbul, Turkey, and my background is civil engineering. I have also double, the major degree in, the road safety engineering and the transport planning. So let me share my screen because it's going to be, the very, very, the heavy, the presentation. Yeah. So. Okay, here we are. Today, I'm very glad to represent the WRI guide. It's a city safer by design. I mean, from my end, I believe that this guideline is a complete guideline in terms of the navigating the planners, the engineers, even the policy maker, how we can, to save life and how we can establish safe environment for whole citizen and the whole, the road user for our city. So for our, the interpreter, I'm trying to, the speak very slowly. Okay, here we are. In this guideline, we look further and we divide themes into the 6 design principle in this guideline. In this slide, you can see our, the 6 design principle. In each chapter in this guideline, in each chapter is focused on describing the elements and the evidence for implementing this measure. And in this guideline, I must outline, we didn't just get the best practice from, the global north, like, the Stockholm or like, the Amsterdam or Copenhagen. We try to, to compile different, the cases, the best practice, especially from the developing world, like, the Bogota, Colombia, Istanbul, Turkey, the India, Mexico, so on. I mean, we focus the global south. And my message is very keen and very straightforward. The good things are also happening in developing world. The only thing that we do need to, the identify, measure this, the measures the impact and, the scale in, in our context. Okay. So I would like to start with the urban design, which is very key. And all researchers are showing us the cities with the small block size, with the, the street connectivity layout and compact living for the destination nearby, such as education, such as, the religion space, such as, the retail, the residence can be safer, the cities. Okay. So in here, I just want to mention a couple of, the measure that we put forward in this, the guideline. Okay. So the small block size, are, the recurring, the small, the reaction time and small, the stopping distance. So which means we have to, avoid super blocks. We have to build our, the city with the small block. In this sketch, you can see with the small blocks, it's harder for vehicles to speed it up, and it requires the lower speed. But in that case, as you see, with the small block size, we are going to have a number of the, the intersection. That means we can have more, the traffic crashes. But through the lower speed, we are going to have favor, the casualties and, the injuries, because we just gonna have some, let's say, the property damage through the lower speed. This is our, the design impact. So here we are, another example from Mexico, and the Mexico City show us the maximum pedestrian crossing distance at intersection increasing 1 meter, pedestrian fatality risk increases 6%. And in this sketch, you can see we do need to, the design and implement a very compact crossing in downtown, in urban area. And in this slide, you can see in the sketch is a kind of, the win-win solution. And we can claim for space for the, the cycling, also for, the parking, so on. This is very, the key design language in here. Again, if we are increasing 1 meter for crossing at intersection in downtown, we are going to increase the pedestrian facility risk by 6%. And I think this another, the key slide from my end. 5 years back, the pandemic has throw everything out of gear, and at that time the mayor of the Paris, she came up with the, that intervention, the 15 minutes, the city. So maybe global north like a Paris, it might be, the convenient to, the use that, the proposal. But for the developing world, maybe it's quite, the challenging to, the establish 15 minutes, right? But in developing world, let's say global south, we can follow the, the neighborhood level, the assessment. So in that case, our, the major, the task must be how we can, the reduce the, the vehicle travel in cities. So we do need to, the create the, the compact, the neighborhood. So people, they can easily reach out the education, the religious, the place, or, the workplace or the park by walking and cycling, maybe less than, the 15 minutes. So this is the main thing. So again, my message is very clear. I mean, we have to create our cities in a compact and connected way in order to reduce the vehicle travel, the demand. Okay, so the traffic calming measurement in this guideline, you can see the set of the traffic calming, the measurement. So we cannot just rely to, the speed limit. So the speed limit must be supported by the physical intervention, let's say the traffic calming measurement. And in this guideline, you can see the whole, the series of the, the intervention, speed humps, the caution, chicanes, the narrow down, so on. And here we are, this is the speed hump, and this is a very cheap and practical way to reduce the speed. And my example in here from, the Mexico, and new installed hump have been shown to reduce the vehicle speed from 36 to, the 25. And based on the, the desired speed, you can, the design and implement this, the measurement in a different, the dimension, the weight and the leg. These are actually the engineering stuff, and some cities and countries, they do have very, the complete, the national guideline for the traffic calming devices. And the race, the intersection, this is not common intervention, but I just want to mention in here. And what we find from, the Bogota, Colombia, race intersection have to reduce the speed by 10%. And the curb extension, I mentioned that this is the same. If we are adding the 1 meter, is going to be increase the pedestrian crashes 6%. And the urban artery, I think, is a very keen, and I know the all around the world is a common, the concern in road safety field, how we can, the redesign or revisit our urban arterial where we do have, the casualties. Because I mean the vehicle are speeding up, the whole retail, the shops, the all facilities are surrounded in that area, and the pedestrian, the passengers, the is the artery are the heart of the city. So we have to come up with the unique solution. So I know it's time is running up, but the thing is, if we would like to the change the our urban artery in a safe and accessible way, we have to consider the complete street approach, which means we have to claim the space from the motorized vehicle, and we do need to the adopt the mass transit system. It might be the central medium, the BRT system. At the same time, we can the support this the system by walking and cycling the facility. The complete street approach is a very keen intervention in order to the revisiting design for our urban arterial. And even with the the small change, let's say the putting the medium refuge island can save the life and improve motorcycle safety. I think in the East Asia, in the Latin America, and in Africa, like Uganda, the Kenya, Nairobi, I think this is the hot topic in road safety field. Recently, we have also launched a new guideline how we can the improve the motorcycle safety. I think we do need the the carry out additional, let's say, the special session to discuss about the the motorcycle safety. But my best advice in here, I'm going to follow up this discussion. You have to the invest the public transit in order to the improve the motorcycle safety. So there are some the design intervention for sure, but now I think the best way for the cities invest the the public transit. Okay, so the pedestrianized think the street, the pedestrian space, I think in markets there are a few the guideline how we can the establish the pedestrian streets. And in this guideline also we have carried out the the survey. So I would like to encourage all of you, I mean, please go out and the running the survey with your citizen and collect their thought how you can the provide the safe and accessible the walking the facility. See the satisfaction is very poor from the Brazil, Mexico, India, and the Peru. And the sidewalk, if you are going to the renovate the sidewalk or the pedestrian walkway, it's have to the reduce the speed in that corridor around the 50%, and it's have to the reduce the the traffic casualty. I'm trying to be rush, and this case from my country, Turkey, and we pedestrianize the whole the all the way down the major arterial in Izmir, Turkey, and we found that we have reduced the casualty by 50%. So the pedestrianization, I think, one of the best intervention in order to the reduce the casualty and the speed. The street plaza, I think the New York has did great job back in day, and they put the the street plaza with the furniture, and the people actually enjoy the Times Square the back in day. And in that implementation, the outcome was, the decreasing 60% in speeding and 26% reduction in injury with the street plaza. Also, it's a win-win. I mean, the people can enjoy the city. I mean, this is the best environment to establish the road safety. I think so. And the cycling infrastructure, regarding the cycling infrastructure, my message is very straightforward. You have to, the plan and implement your cycling infrastructure in a network, the approach. So here we are again from global south, the Colombia, and by adding the more cycling lane in a the network approach, they they have reduced the casualty. And we do need to the come up with a different set of implementation for cycling facility. If you are going to the claimed space for the cyclings on busy the street, you have to consider the protecting cycling. These are a couple of the example from Mexico and Shanghai. And safe access to transit. I mean, again, I mean, I mentioned that in motorcycle safety, city must invest the public transit from A to B, and is the safest and accessible way to moving around the cities. And my the recent the achievement is from the Kumasi, Accra. I just finalized a speed management plan, and in this regard, one of my the key recommendation in the speed management plan, we have to the pick some corridor as a the transit corridor, which means we can run the the minibuses, or we can the reshape the further the BRT systems anyway. So we do need to the develop the the transit the corridor that allows us to the reduce the speed and the moving people, more accessibility. So transit, public transport are also the solution in road safety field. So I'm always keep saying that the sustainable transport save life. So thank you. I hope I have done in time. I don't know. So Jessica, over to you. I stop. I mean, I'm getting also, I'm keeping talking. So this is my new addiction. So anyway, so thank you. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Tolga. We really appreciate you coming along and sharing these fantastic examples with us. And I really liked what you mentioned around that there is so many great examples that are happening in developing low middle income countries. And there's a lot of great work. And thank you so much for highlighting that for us, because it's not just the high income countries that are doing fantastic work. We're also seeing a lot of wonderful work that's being done in low middle income countries. And we'll like to be able to delve into that in a little bit more detail in the question and answer session a little bit later. Fantastic. And once again, everyone, I encourage you, if you've got any questions, do pop it in the question and answer box, and we'll try to get to them in the Q&A session. Or Tolga, Yahaya, if you have a chance, also have a look at the Q&A box and see if there are any questions that you can answer already. So thank you once again, Tolga, and we'll see you again in a little bit during the Q&A session. Just before we move on to our next speaker, I might just ask Mark if you can bring up the very first poll question. We've heard a little bit about the importance of speed management and speed reduction to help create livable cities. So just from your perspective and in your jurisdiction, it'll be interesting for us to get an understanding of whether you think the speed limits in your urban areas, in your countries, whether they help create livable cities. So the answers are yes, they are set just right, or no, they really are set a little bit too high for people to feel safe and for us to be able to move around in a livable way. So if you can fill that in, that would be fantastic, and we'll come back with the answer in a little bit. Excellent. And now I have the pleasure of welcoming our very next speaker, Yahaya Ahmad from MIROS. I've had the pleasure of working with Yahaya over a number of years on vehicle safety issues, and it's great to have you join us, Yahaya, to share a little bit around how you sort of see vehicle safety helping to create livable cities and helping with speed management. Thank you so much for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jess. Okay, my name is Yahaya. I'm working with MIROS as a head of passenger vehicle safety and occupant, and also on the other hand, I'm also as a technical leader for ASEAN NCAP, where we rate the safety of the vehicle for ASEAN countries. So I will share my presentation. Okay. So today I will talk about how safer vehicles and technology can help with the managing speed. So today I will speak on the other side of the design of the roads. Now we speak on how we work on the vehicles safety, how we introduce the vehicle safety technology that we can manage the situation, the traffic, the impacts. We reduce impact speed or avoid the impact between the vehicle and also others road users. So basically, when we talk about the vehicle, so we talk about the 4 stages of the vehicle safety. First, we talk about the first stage where we call driving assistant, where we call on the safe driving, and where we should drive safely, avoid the crash with the different technology that adapt in the vehicles. And next, if there is any risk of a crash, so we come to the phase of the accident mitigation or avoidance, where the vehicle, the technology installed inside of the vehicle will work. If the detection or risk of crash, we'll try to activate a few different technology to mitigate, to avoid the crash. And finally, if there is any crash, there is a passive safety where it will impact the accident or the crash energy, and also will absorb the technology. And finally, with the restraint system inside of the vehicle, for example, airbag and seatbelt, it will avoid the crash. So then finally, we go to emergency, where where we should save, we should mitigate, we should handle the occupant faster in order to reduce the risk of fatalities and also injuries. So, but today, where we talk about the mitigate, how safer vehicle technology can work to reduce, to have a better speed management in the city, we will speak on the first and second phase, where safer driving and also accident mitigation or avoidance. So this is an example of the traffic conflict in the city area, in the housing area, where from the vehicle side, we will study, we will understand the situation. So I will play the video. We will understand how the vehicle moving. So where's the conflict? So you can see this a lot of motorcycle and the car coming and impact the motorcycle. So this situation, we will work to make sure that we understand the situation and we will design the technology that will help to avoid the impact, to reduce the impact. So that's where vehicle technology will come on. So to make sure that we can avoid the impact between vehicle and also the vulnerable road user, either pedestrian, motorcycles. This is really the big issue in ASEAN country. So we in vehicle safety side, we work to manage this one through introduction of a lot of technology. For example, first technology we introduced inside of the vehicles is an electronic stability control, where we manage the vehicle when the braking to make sure that it's not loss of control. Then you can have a proper maneuver of the vehicles to avoid the crash. And we also introduce a speed limiter, so we can restrict the speed. You can design, so it designed to prevent vehicle from exceeding the speed limit. So by this one, we can control the speed of the vehicle traveling. And now we are working a lot on the autonomous emergency braking. So where the brake apply automatically by the vehicle to in response to detect a likely collision. So by this one, by this technology, we will reduce the vehicle speed and also the potentially avoid the collision. But the ultimate target is to avoid the collision. So by this one, we can work out to solve conflict between car to motorcycle, car to pedestrian, car to vehicle, and car to others. So we are work on this one to make sure that we can have a better technology that work to avoid any crash or any impact between this one. So the most important, we want to avoid vulnerable road users like motorcycle, pedestrian, bicycle, by avoiding the impact and reduce the impact speed, where we know by reducing the impact speed, we can reduce the outcome of the injury. So this on the vehicle side, that's why I show the previous video show where we one of the example of our study. We have a lot of study now. We are now working on collecting all the real case, a real accident case on our road in ASEAN. We collect from a different countries. We collect the traffic complaint. We collect the traveling behavior, traveling pattern, driving pattern, for us to learn, because we need to learn all this issue in order for us to replicate the issue. And we introduce this algorithm to in the design of the vehicle. So that's a very important for us. From this one, we work out to make sure that we control the vehicle design, the technology that design and adapt the local situation. We also another example of technology. We have adaptive cruise control. So where we adapt the speed between the different vehicle, and also manage the speed so to avoid the impact. And we also starting to introduce rear cross traffic braking. So I will show the example after this. Is a automatic emergency braking in the parking area. So it designed to help and avoid a reducibility rear end collision when reversing on oncoming motorists that was detected from either left or right side of the vehicle, because this is very important in the parking area, in the road street parking, so for you to avoid the crash. So this is an example of the video for the rear cross traffic braking, where the vehicle will brake automatic by itself when it detect the motorcycle oncoming from the left or right side. So this one example already introduced the technology. So you can see the vehicle when it detected the motorcycle is automatically brake. So we make sure that this technology will help to avoid the crash. And this is example of the new introduction for new vehicle will be assessed in ASEAN NCAP in ASEAN country to avoid interact with the motorcycles. So this
Right turn across path scenario.
so this is one of the cases.
Rear end moving scenario. Crossing scenario. Oncoming scenario.
So with this one, so we have a technology of the auto braking to the motorcycle that it's a main issue in ASEAN country. So by this one, avoiding the crash between motorcycle and also the vehicle, we can reduce the fatalities in our region. There's a main issue of I think 60 to 70% of fatalities coming out from the motorcycles. So we are focusing a lot of motorcycles issue in our region. So we are now collecting a lot of data from the real crash on the road, the traffic conflict in our region. We will adapt this one. We will replicate in order to design the vehicle algorithm to avoid this type of conflict and interaction, to make sure that we reduce the crash and also the impact of the crash between the car and also motorcycles. Thank you. That's all from me.
Thank you so much, Yahaya, for sharing your insights into how vehicle technologies can help manage speed and reduce fatalities on our roads. And I think they are a great sort of contrast to some of the measures that Tolga mentioned earlier, and really highlights a safe system approach to being able to manage speeds on our streets. It's not just one measure, it's not just infrastructure, it's not just vehicles, but a combination of them can really help to make our cities safer and more livable. So thank you for that, Yahaya. Now, Mark, if we can please bring up the answer to our very first poll question, if you may. So our first poll question was really trying to understand, are the speed limits in your urban areas helping to create livable cities? Now, or actually, this is higher than I thought. So more than half think that the speed limits that have been set in your urban areas are helping to create livable cities. And then just over a third think that they're set a little bit too high. I'll be very curious, for those that have said yes, they are set just right. If you don't mind popping into the Q&A box, what are the maximum speed limits in your areas? What are they sort of set at? It will be really interesting to sort of understand what they sort of are, because I think from some of our experiences, many of the speed limits that have been set in urban areas are set a little bit too high. So the risk when a pedestrian or a cyclist or a vulnerable road user is hit by a vehicle, it is above the threshold for what the human body can actually tolerate. So that's why I guess we're having this webinar series today, to understand how we can manage those speeds better. So thank you to those that participated in this poll question. It's a really interesting sort of response. And while I've got everyone, before we move into the Q&A section, Mark, if you don't mind bringing up poll question number 2 as well. So we've heard a bit from Tolga and Yahaya on how different measures, infrastructure measures, vehicle measures, can help with the enforcement of speed limits that have been set in your jurisdiction. So can you let us know what sort of enforcement are being undertaken in your jurisdiction to help manage the speeds? Do you use police enforcement, traffic camera operations, vehicle technologies, road infrastructure, or are they not enforced? So it'll be, if you can complete that, that would be very interesting. Thank you. Now, Unfortunately, it looks like our third speaker, our Mr. John O'Vera from Papua New Guinea, is a little bit held up, and it doesn't appear that he'll be able to join us, which is a bit of a shame because it would have been great to have a case study from Papua New Guinea on how they're enforcing their speed limits. But hopefully we'll be able to get him to join in one of the next sessions. But that just means that we've got more time to delve into some of the topics that have been raised by Tolga and Yahaya. So if I can invite Tolga and Yahaya to join me for the next section on our Q&A, that would be fantastic. And please keep your questions coming in the Q&A box. And if you also want to raise your hand and ask a question directly, that would also be very much welcome. And thank you for all those that are popping in their questions in the Q&A box. Yes, I can see a lot of great answers. So thanks, Tolga. Maybe I'll jump to you first. Thank you for answering some of the questions in the Q&A box. I know some of the guidelines that you talked about in your presentation, they are available online for everyone to be able to access. Is that correct?
Sure. So in my presentation, I mentioned that recently, as a World Resource Institute, we launched a new guideline for motorcycle safety. In the chat, I dropped the the online link. You can the download is free. At the same time, what I'm going to offer you, Jessica, maybe I can share with you some the key the publication from our end, the whole link, and you can share afterward. I don't know, I mean, with my presentation, if it works, I can propose that.
That would be fantastic, Tolga. Maybe we add a slide to the end of your presentation with all the resource links. I think the participants would all be very appreciative of that. And I will mention this again at the end of the webinar, but I think there's quite a few questions regarding the presentations and also the webinar. They will be made available at the end of this webinar. So please keep an eye out on the website. You will be able to access them from the link that we provide later as well. So I think, Tolga, while we have you, I think there's been some questions that you've sort of seen in the chat group. I think there's a lot of interest in implementing some of the measures that you've spoken about, but implementation is often a challenge in a lot of low middle income countries, whether it's resources, whether it's agencies, who's responsible for doing all this. I think there was a question sort of in the chat talking about, well, it's fantastic, but what's the best institutional setup? What's the best way to actually start implementing some of these? Who's actually responsible?
Okay, so I think it's a great question. It's reflect the the origin of the problem. I think in developing the world in global south, one of the major the issue in terms of the implementation, the local the body, let's say the local the government, the municipality assemblies, they don't have the capacity in terms of the the implementation. They do not have the enough the budget to run the the implementation, which means, I mean, we have been seeing this the common problem. I think the best the advice from my end, in your context, I don't know, it's based on the the regulations, so on. I think that my best advice, you have to establish your own the road safety authority, and this road safety authority has to have the local the branches, and this local branches, they have to be embedded in the the local body. I mean, the local body and this road safety the authority branch must be supported in a very coordinated way. This is the first thing. Otherwise, the local, the body, they're always suffering, to get access to, the national funding, because the national funding are always going to, the mega infrastructure in developing countries, the highway, the bridges, but somehow at the end of the day, even the local bodies, they don't have sufficient, the minor budget to be secure, to just, the adding some couple of, the plastic bollard to check the, the crossing, so on. I mean, this is our reality. So in your context, my best advice, please go ahead and revisit your own context. And in this revisitation, you have to identify what is the, the best shortcut to develop this authority, and this authority do have the branches, and the branches must be work out with the, the local bodies. And in here also, Jessica, if you allow me, I would like to take the other question, the question about the, the best practice to advocate, right? I think it's there's a, the link. So please, I mean, this is my advice, okay? So what I'm seeing, I mean, I have been working more than 50 years in developing country. I work in Pakistan, I work in India, I work in, the Afghanistan, in Africa. So for example, I mean, in my whole, the task, the mission, we have been running a kind of, the opening, let's say, the event. And in the first 15 minutes, high-level decision makers, the mayor, the deputy minister, they have been showing up. They have been listening the first presentation from our end, and they have been, gone through the, the event. They are not covering the whole idea. So my advice, how we can, the advocate, how we can, the communicate with high-level decision maker. My best advice in here, if you guys as a technical staff or as a, the mid-level, I don't know, you must carry out the field study. For example, the deputy of the minister or the mayor, they must see in the field how our pedestrian, how our vulnerable user, they have been facing, they have been taking the risk every day to cross just this road. I mean, it's not a big deal to treat this, the spot, I'm sure, but in developing world, in this spot, maybe we do have, let's say, more than 10, the casualty per year. And if the high level decision, the mayor, deputies, whatever, they can see in person this, the intersection, this crossing, if they can taste it, let's say they taste it, they can take action. Otherwise, for them, they're at the top. They're just, the running through the whole, the management organization. I can see that they're super busy, but people are dying, and the solution is very, the simple, less dramatic, and you have to find out how they can, the engage this type of the field study. You have to think about it. This is my best advice. Otherwise, I mean, the presentation, the technical, the recommendation, it's hard to, to get there. I mean, they have to taste it. This is my best advice. I stop again, Jessica. I'm talking too much. Yeah, stop.
No, thank you, Tolga. That was a really informative sort of answer. And I agree with you. If you can demonstrate, if you can show, it's a very powerful way to get your messages across. And I can see Yahaya nodding. I think it's very similar in the vehicle safety space. Demonstration of technologies, showing policymakers exactly how they can work in saving lives is a very powerful tool. So Yahaya, you mentioned in your presentation a number of different technologies, and they are all fantastic in helping to be able to save lives. And once again, under the safe system approach, what we know is we need to be able to manage the energy. And when we talk about vulnerable road users, a lot of that time it is about avoiding the crash, because once a crash happens, the outcome can be extremely serious. Now, I wanted to touch on, you mentioned speed limiters in your presentation. So a top speed limiter. So drivers can set a top speed and the car won't be able to exceed the speed limit. So I think in some of the high income countries, what we're seeing is a move to a more dynamic speed limiter. So intelligent speed assistance, where the technology can actually detect the speed of the road and automatically control the vehicle to be able to slow down to that speed limit. Is that technology, ISA, intelligent speed adaptation, is that a technology that you can see being deployed in Malaysia, in, you know, our more developing countries?
Okay, yes. Thank you very much. Very good question. So I know this intelligent speed assistant has been I think implemented in a lot of in the European I think mostly in European, mainly on the intelligent speed assistant. But I think because of the most of the developing country, especially in ASEAN, because we are moving toward improving our not only the vehicle safety, we also improving our infrastructure. So with a lot of new road being built and everything, and also we also adapting a lot of different technology. And I think as far as I know, there has already intelligent speed assistant technology had already start to being adapt in our region. So this, but we always adapting carefully the new technology. So we are not trying to just copy, just introduce the technology while working in other region. What we do here, we must adapt it to the local condition. That's why we have a lot of the traffic study, local traffic study for this purpose. So while we introduce a speed limiting, so we also need to make sure we adapt to the local traffic, because sometimes it might work in a different region, it might not work in some situation. So there is a technology already offered in the some of the vehicles, but we must make sure that the design, the algorithm, the method of the implementation of the technology must adapt to the local. But there is a trend, this technology start coming into our region, and we are working on the make sure that when it's widely used, it must be able to tackle the local problem.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point, Yahaya, about the local context, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's vehicle technologies, understanding how it would be deployed and implemented in the local context is so important. Because while the general principles and the effectiveness may be very similar, how it's implemented, how you get it into the community, how you speak to governments about it could be quite different. So understanding the local context is so important. I also want to just quickly touch on, I can see that there's a comment in the Q&A box talking about how it's not all about speed reduction. It is about, you know, matching the speed limits to the functions of the road. And I think that is a great comment, and that is what we're trying to, I guess, do, because under the safe system approach, it's not just about reducing speeds, it's about how do we manage speeds within our system. So if we have good infrastructure, we've got good vehicle technologies, we can potentially allow slightly higher speeds because we can manage the energy. But if we can't manage the energy, then one of the easiest ways to be able to keep people safe is to have hopefully lower speed limits. But I absolutely agree that, you know, it's not just about reducing speeds, it's about managing the speeds and making sure that they're appropriate to the local conditions and the safety conditions that we have on our roads. And with that, I'm going to ask Mark, can you please bring up the answer to our poll question number 2? So it's one thing to set appropriate speed limits for our roads, but if they're not being enforced, that is another problem. And I can see in the Q&A box, a lot of people have written down the speed limits of their urban areas, but they've also highlighted one of the problems is that people are not abiding by them. It's not, really, people are not traveling at the set speed limits. So how are you actually enforcing for the speed limits in your jurisdiction? Many people are using police enforcement and also road infrastructure to physically slow people down. And a smaller proportion are saying that there's no enforcement at all, and also not as many people using vehicle technologies. So police enforcement and road infrastructure seems to be the most popular options for enforcement. So once again, going back to the safe system approach, just telling people they have to abide by the speed limit is often more difficult because we know that people make mistakes. But if we can use technologies like road infrastructure and vehicle technologies to help people abide by the speed limit, we're likely to see better outcomes. I'm wondering, Tolga and Yahaya, do you have any views on the poll results that you see in front of you? Does it kind of align with your experience with what you're seeing in the countries that you operate in?
I think the enforcement is very keen. I mean, I don't know our audience, they are familiar to Kelly Larson, who is running the Bloomberg Philanthropy, and the Bloomberg Philanthropy is providing, the support the NGOs to, in road safety field. And maybe 15 months back, Kelly and we were in, the Addis Ababa and Ethiopia, and I came up this, the thing. So I'm from Turkey, okay? I'm based in Istanbul, and, more than 8 million Turkish people, 7 million, they are living in, the EU, in Europe, Netherlands, Germany, Belgium, name on, okay? In summertime, these people, they have been running through the, the Turkey to, the spend your vacation in their own country. And in our research, what we have found, most of, the casualties and the fatalities have been occurring by the, the people who are coming from abroad to Turkey. And these people, they have collected their, the driving license, the whole education in, the origin of the Vision Zero, maybe in Stockholm, in Amsterdam. Maybe 8 hours back, they were running around the Amsterdam, but when they pass the, the border, they start to, to drive crazy. So the long story for short, without, the enforcement, the education, so on, they're just, the just fun. And then the Kelly, she got this, the thought, and the recently in our World Bank, the event, I mean, she mentioned that the enforcement is very key. I mean, you have to invest the enforcement. I mean, the intelligent enforcement is on horizon. I think in developing country, they start to, they invest, and it must be, the link to the, the also traffic management, the network level traffic management thing. So this is the whole, the package. So enforcement is very key. I mean, without enforcement, I mean, we cannot get there. I mean, we cannot reach our, the global goals. So I stop again. I'm talking too much, Jessica.
Thanks, Tolga. And Yahaya, I just want to give you.
Thank you very much. So because I have two different sides. So on others, we talk about the enforcement. Always we know enforcement is a key, but it's not easy. It's a big challenge in the enforcement. So we shall understand in our region. Yes, we know we have a lot of law. We have a lot of regulation have been enforced. Regulation have been enforced, but the final is the enforcement. The enforcement is something that it's not only related to the law that already being created, but also related to political willingness. So the
Yeah.
enforcement. So it's something a big challenge for us, because as a MIROS, we also support our government part of in introduction of the policy. So it's a big challenge to convince that the enforcement must be kicked now, even the regulation is there. So, and also another issue that we are working on is the methodology of enforcement. We always talk to the police, to the all the enforcer, please enforce, but we also need to guide them how to enforce. So
Yeah.
this is a very important, how to enforce efficiently, because we cannot invest all of our cost time to do we call total enforcement, but we must do efficient enforcement. So you might spend 10% of time of enforcement, but you need output of 90% of that one. So there's a very important what I foresee, because enforcement is number one. The implementation and enforcement is very important.
Yeah.
So
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Yahaya and Tolga. Once again, just a very big thank you to you both for joining us on this webinar series, and also for sharing your experience in the speed management space. So really appreciate your time. I know we're running just a couple of minutes late. Mark, can we please bring up the very last poll question? I also want to say a very big thank you to all our participants that have supported this webinar series throughout the 5 sessions. The very last poll question we have is the one that we do at the end of every session, just to find out what you found the most helpful. And if we move to the next slide, please, Mark. And as usual, all the presentations and recordings from this webinar series will be made available on the APRSO website. So please go to that website and have a look, and you'll be able to download the presentations. And if we move to the next slide, please, Mark. So as you know, this is the very last session of our 5-part series in webinar series 2. We've greatly appreciated everybody's support, and I hope that you found it useful to your everyday work, and it's helped to build up knowledge in a different area. What you will see in the coming days is an email from us. If you can provide some feedback and evaluation on how you found this webinar series, we would be very grateful, and also to get some insight into what you would like to see in webinar series 3, which will be coming out later this year in October. So with that, just a reminder also that the APRSO conference will be taking place in September in Manila, and we hope to see you there in person. And with that, I would like to once again thank Tolga and Yahaya, and also the team, for helping put together this webinar series. We hope you've enjoyed it. We hope you've been able to take away some road safety knowledge, and we hope to see you in October for webinar series 3. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day and a lovely week, and we hope to meet up again very soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Tolga. Thanks,
you.
Yahaya.